Hi, so we'll just go through a few questions about your experience working with me and yeah, go from there. So first off, why did you decide to start working with me?
Because at the time I was struggling with the food that I was eating and the way I was eating and the thoughts around food from being sick for such a long time. I was scared of eating certain foods because they would cause me to think I was going to become sick if I ate them again.
Okay, and what would you say your biggest frustrations were when we started? So like what your main hurdle was that needed to be worked through?
Possibly the way I was eating and not being able to eat what I wanted and being restricted from the foods I wanted to eat, um, and possibly I'm just trying to think, and possibly yeah, that's possibly about it.
Okay. And what were you hoping to accomplish when we were working together?
Um, just to get a different mindset on the foods, to realise that the foods that were causing problems when I was first sick, that if I ate those foods again or introduced those foods back into my diet, that they weren't going to cause any problems, and that those fears were because of what was happening at the time and that stress, and that's not happening now. So that's not become an issue anymore. Yeah, probably, yeah, that's probably about where I'd sort of got to with the food side of it.
Yeah. So really just hoping to kind of feel that kind of trust in yourself and around food and stuff.
Yeah,
So in terms of that, did you accomplish that goal, those goals around food?
yes, definitely. Yep. I can now eat things I couldn't eat before, and be able to go out and enjoy them, um, and not have that fear of eating them and then wondering what's going to happen next, whether I'm going to end up being sick from them or whether I'm going to not be able to eat them again. So yeah, I definitely accomplished not having that fear of certain foods and the foods that had caused issues in the past.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay. And how did you find, what was your experience like in my program? Like, how did you find it?
It was good for a start off. I was worried that there would be big changes, but there wasn't. I thought there would be like a restrictive dieting plan that you had to do or restrictive eating plan that you had to do, but there wasn't. It was just more supportive for what you're already doing and just changing your mindset to the way you thought about the food you ate and how you were eating it.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Okay. So in terms of that, how has your overall health been impacted since working with me?
It's good. It's changed. Before I was working with you, I was always very tired, very lethargic, um, because I wasn't eating the foods that I needed to, and I was always eating a lot of sugary foods to get the energy that I needed. But now that's changed. I'm not eating those sugary foods. I'm eating more healthy foods because I'm not afraid to eat the healthy foods or the foods that were causing what I thought were the problems, but they weren't. It was just at the time that I was sick, I just couldn't eat those foods. But now that I wasn't, haven't, isn't now that I'm not sick and I can eat those foods now, the sugary foods aren't my energy source. The good foods are.
Yeah. Awesome. And in terms of the mindset, your mindset and beliefs around food, how has that changed since we started working together?
The mindset around food has changed quite dramatically. I enjoy having the food now, I enjoy being able to go out somewhere for tea and having maybe pizza and maybe a beer and not being fearful of the consequences that were previous there. So I can sit down at home and enjoy a cracker before tea or an apple and not think, oh my goodness, why did I just eat that? So that mindset around food has dramatically changed.
Awesome. And in terms of moving forward, so would you recommend my program to other people?
Yep, definitely, because as I said, I wasn't sure what to expect, but now that I've done the program, I found there was no restrictive dieting. There was no, you have to eat this, you have to do that. All it did was emphasize the positives that you were potentially already doing and help you understand the negatives in your diet that you were perhaps getting hung up on that you didn't need to get hung up on.
Yeah.
And it just got you on a clearer path to where you needed to be. So you would have one task to concentrate on for the week rather than a whole set of tasks, and that there was no restrictive dieting. If anything, if you did feel hungry, you would tell me it was okay to have something else, or it was okay to have a piece of fruit, which a lot of people don't understand. They
Yeah.
think that if they're on a diet, they have to live by this and this rule, but sometimes it's not always the way.
Yeah. It's a very different approach than compared to some diets. Really,
Definitely.
yeah, because when we don't eat enough, we're just going to end up whether it's the next day or a year down the track, we're going to end up compensating in some way if we're not fueling ourselves properly, if we're not eating enough when we are hungry. So yeah,
And I think that was a big thing because I'd noticed a day where I had been busy and not eating quite so well, and then the next day I would um, binge eat the food. I would eat drastically to make up for the day that I hadn't eaten properly before.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously like working with me, you've kind of been able to realize that and recognize that a bit more, and that's a big part of what we kind of went through. So that's
Yes.
really awesome that
Yeah.
we've been able to, yeah,
And as you said, if you still felt hungry at 9 o'clock at night, it's okay. Go have an apple.
yeah,
You're not going to be in a whole world of trouble for having an apple at 9 o'clock at night. If
yeah,
anything, it's going to do you better because you're not going to wake up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and start binging on junk food or something that you shouldn't be eating.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. No, cool. Okay, so what would you tell someone who is thinking about joining my program but wasn't quite sure?
For me, I'd tell them to go for it because it definitely helped change my mindset. As I said, mine was probably stress related. That's why I got sick. So not only were you dealing with that stress side of it, but you were dealing with the other things that were going in your head, which was related to the stress side of it. But you also touched base on those and made me realise that what I thought a lot of it was my problems potentially weren't either. So which was great too, which then also changed the food side of it too. So you just gave me an insight and made me realise that some of what I was thinking was all my problem actually wasn't my problem at all. I'd just taken it on board as being my problem. And that's when the stress come in, and that's when the sickness come in with not being able to eat properly. So that's when the food issue started. So once you got over that hurdle, it all changed. Just being more positive about yourself, become more positive about food and the way you ate.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the thoughts and like the positivity around things and recognizing things that aren't they shouldn't be, like, we don't need to put them on our plate as well, like, and add to that stress, is really
Yes,
powerful to, in terms of the food side of it, like if our relationship with food is unhealthy. But yeah,
yes,
no, cool.
yes. Especially if you're already in an unhealthy relationship, and then you have an unhealthy relationship with food, it just snowballs and spirals.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. No. Okay, cool. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add before we pop off this, or yeah,
No, I think it was just the fact that I personally, for me, I found it it was a very good program. I didn't, um, I didn't, as I said, I didn't know what to expect, and I was probably a bit anxious for a start off. But then I felt for the first couple of weeks we were touching on a lot of things, and I hadn't felt like I was going forward any, but I definitely wasn't going backwards. And then all of a sudden, probably about maybe the halfway mark, it just changed and bang, and away it went. Because one night you'd notice that you hadn't had that to eat, which you normally would have had every other night. That become less and less those things, and the way you thought about the way you're eating had changed and become more positive. So that's probably what I found was quite nice,
Yeah.
for the program, definitely. Yeah. And as I said, there was no restrictive dieting. You didn't have to eat this. You didn't have to do that. And there was no judgment. You're a non-judgmental to anything. If anything, when you did have a bad day or make a bad comment, you'd sort of pull it up and say, well, actually, no, you look at it this way, as opposed to thinking it was all my problem
Yeah.
when it actually wasn't. Yeah, which was nice,
Yeah.
because there was definitely some days that I did need that, so which was good.
Yeah. No, definitely. Oh, cool. Okay. Well, thank you for answering these questions for me and, yeah, chatting with me. And yeah, I'll just